One. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool, and we've got a special guest sitting in the green room this afternoon, live with us here on the Twitters and the Twitches and the Tubes and the books. Like, we got all the things covered.
Awesome. What's he gonna tell us about today, Sean?
Well, he gave me a title for the show after I invited him on, and he said, "The Six-Figure Client Experience: How to Brew Up." Their little pun there. The best client experience.
I like it.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed with experience twice in the title. That was a little, but I didn't feel like editing and putting on my copy editor hat. So
yeah,
we just threw it up as our guest wanted it. So we'll see if that affects anything in all of our lives. Why don't we? He's got a beverage, Jonathan. So why don't we just go ahead and bring in our special guest of the afternoon, Mr. Tom Meitner.
Please, hold your applause.
Stop it!
Wow!
Stop it! Yeah, you gotta this stage thing where you say stop it, but you're using the hand motions to keep it coming.
It's hard to do that on camera.
Yeah, that doesn't translate to our podcast listeners, just the YouTube and
this is listeners. The framing segment of our show, Tom, where we create the we start you off with a nice framework of applause.
Yes.
Really,
why wait to the end for a standing ovation?
Makes me feel good. That's right.
Yeah. Jonathan, we never do that. We never actually do a clap at the end of the show. Maybe we should start adding that in. Or maybe everybody left. I don't know.
That's right.
Well, Tom, it is good to see you. We were talking right before the show. Tom and I used to work together at Street Authority, writing financial copy. That was 10 years ago. It was really the last time we've actually had a conversation. So it's amazing how time flies. You were kind of brand new in the business back then, right?
I was
not brand new.
I was new-ish to finance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was my first big retainer regular client.
Yeah.
So that was January of 2013. Yeah.
Yeah. Not an easy one to have as your first client either. they had some issues.
Few are easy.
Yeah, that's true. They definitely had some issues though. I don't know who owns them now, or don't see much from them. I don't know if you see it.
I worked for them a couple of years ago, but I don't know if I think part of their company has changed hands again since then.
Yeah, I think so too. So had a couple of good wins with them, but just not writing much financial anymore. So, well, Tom, I'm excited to talk about this, but before we get into the topic, we have this segment we call Juvenile Beer Talk, because that's what one of our YouTube listeners one time called it. So now we embrace it.
Embrace and amplify. So
I like it.
We make it even louder.
Yeah.
I like it.
So Tom, what do you have where are you from up there? What part of the world are you in? And then introduce your beverage.
Well, I'm from, I live in Richfield, Wisconsin, which is just north-ish of Milwaukee. And one of our proudest beer brands of many in Wisconsin is the New Glarus Brewing Company. We have our Spotted Cow here.
Nice.
Nice little Wisconsin.
Spotted Cow.
Spotted Cow. Yeah.
Is there a story
behind
nice,
that? I don't know if there's a story. I mean, I could sit here and read the can, but it's a farmhouse ale. It's middle of the road. It's not too heavy, not too light. I don't really like light beers. And I wasn't feeling heavy when I went down to the fridge today. It's still Friday afternoon. So this is your daily driver, at least for me.
Got it.
If I need a beer.
Sounds good. All right. Well, Jonathan, what do you have?
Okay. I have some hippies and cowboys on the show. Let me zoom in.
That sounds like an Austin beer.
Actually, it's straight out of Tennessee Brew Works here in my home state.
Well, in Nashville. So I mean, Nashville and Austin are got a lot of similar vibe going on.
But it is an IPA, Sean. So I don't know.
Good luck.
So it is so if you live in Tennessee, you have plenty of friends that are hippies and cowboys. This IPA is an ode to them. Tropical citrus provides luscious aromas that filter through the palate. Light on the bittering. So maybe this is a good IPA. So we'll see.
We're not huge IPA fans, Tom.
I'm not at all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. They got a little crazy. So, all right. Well, I went down to the beer fridge and there was no beer. So I found some of I don't know if these are my wife's or my daughter's, but I may get my man card pulled today. So I'm having a truly a lemon seltzer because I missed my beer run this week. But I got to tell you, at 108 degrees,
it's probably pretty refreshing.
Outside, it's only 75 inside, but I like to complain about the heat. So. But yeah, it's actually 5% alcohol. It's a lemonade seltzer. Like it's a classic summertime drink. Even though I'm not a big, I think seltzers went a little too far in the last couple of years. They took over half the fridge section in the beer aisle.
Yeah. Yep.
It's crazy.
Does it taste more like lemonade or more like seltzer? Because
it actually tastes more like lemonade. So yeah.
Okay, well that's good. At least.
Yeah, it's definitely got more lemonade taste. Like it almost tastes like a Mike's hard lemonade.
I don't mind a hard seltzer if I'm sitting by the pool, because you're out in the sun. It's kind of refreshing. That's usually about the only time I'll have a seltzer, like a Truly or something like that.
Well, I appreciate you saving me there. Very kind of you.
Otherwise, there's no reason a grown man should be drinking those things. By the way, I got to show my hippies and cowboys. That's a pretty cool looking can.
That's a nice can.
Is that like? No, I thought it was Willie Nelson at first.
I know. At first, it looks like Willie Nelson, but I don't know.
But then it's got the mutton chops and everything.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. I could do that now. I could just shave all this off and go with the mutton chops.
I thought he had a coonskin cap on at first, but that's just a bandana around his head. So
yeah. All right. Well, Tom, now what we do is we rate these on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the perfect beer. You can use decimal points, as many digits as you want. So yeah, scale of 1 to 5 pints.
Oh, we got to cheers it up first.
We got it. That's true. God, I'm out of order. All right, yes, cheers.
And then that Truly's having an effect.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to cheer up that Truly. I know that.
It's a little embarrassing. I don't know. It's more embarrassing that I'm drinking them or that I'm actually enjoying it. All right, now we can rate it.
Actually, pretty good.
Now we can rate it, Tom. What's your rating?
Spotted Cow for me is 4 1/4, 4.5. It's not I wouldn't say it's perfect beer by any stretch, but it's when in doubt, I go to a bar if I don't know what I want. It's what I grab every time.
Yeah. It's kind of like Shiner here in Texas. Our Shiner box is
I like Shiner.
The go-to. So yeah, cool. 4.25. Is that what you're going with?
Yeah.
Cool. Jonathan, you said yours is pretty good.
I like it. I'm giving this I'm probably going to give this one a 4.8. This tastes more like an ale than an IPA, honestly.
Very cool.
So very refreshing. 4.8. So
nice, man. That's the highest IPA score we've ever had on the show. I think
it doesn't taste like an IPA to me. So it said remember I read on there, it said it was
light bitterness.
Bitterness. So which is true.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I'm going to give mine a solid 4. It's tasty, refreshing. I'm just embarrassed to be here. So I can't give it a 5. So,
what flavor is that again?
The lemonade.
Lemonade. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. At least it's not like strawberry kiwi or something, Yeah. I mean, lemonade's pretty classic. So,
well, yeah.
All right.
We'll forgive you there. Just
Appreciate
straight
it.
Lemonade.
All right, so let's jump into this a little bit. Tom, first of all, let's give people a little bit of a background. Start wherever you want. 6 lifetimes ago, birth. Can
I ask you one question first, Tom?
Fire away.
I'm totally intrigued by the Swanson Pyramid of Greatness in the background because I've always heard about the Pyramid of Success from who is it? UCLA's coach,
John Wooden.
Yeah, it's John Wooden. So I see the Pyramid of Greatness. You got to explain that to me in the background.
So there used to be a show called Parks and Recreation. Character Ron Swanson, and his whole thing was just being a man. And actually this was an episode where he was coaching a little boy's a basketball team. It was like a youth basketball team, and he revealed this, and it's all just stuff about being a man. Like, let's see.
Oh, I see him now.
Crying, yeah. Crying is acceptable at funerals and the Grand Canyon.
I gotta find one of those.
It's on Amazon.
If you look it up, it's everywhere. Yeah.
Okay.
Cursing, there's only one bad word: taxes. If any other word is good enough for sailors, it's good enough for you. It's it's fantastic.
Man. I'm putting that on the Christmas list for that's a great Christmas gift to a lot of people I know. So
it's wonderful. It gets a lot of comments. The problem is I just moved into this house in January, and I'm in the process of renovating this office. And I want to do like a gallery wall over here and then do floating shelves here, which would mean that would move. But it gets so many comments that I want to just figure out a way to keep it on the Zoom calls here.
Yeah, you just do one of those shelves with a lip on it and you just lean it on there instead of hanging it on the wall.
Right.
I gotta have something. It just way too many comments for it. It's the perfect icebreaker.
Yeah.
Very cool. I like it. All right. So now you can give a little background.
Sure. Well, I started copywriting I started learning about it in 2006. I was in the middle of college. I majored in English, and I was getting no direction. I had transferred colleges and still wasn't getting any direction. So I went to Barnes & Noble and discovered a book on what wound up being copywriting and fell in love with the idea. So I took a couple of years. The Well-Fed Writer by Peter Bowerman. I have no idea how relevant it is anymore. It was,
it's
talked about FedExing, copy packages back and forth and stuff. But it was perfect for the position I was in. You have it?
I have that book. Yes. Somewhere on one of these shelves. I have it. So the Well-Fed Writer, it's a great title too.
It is.
I love that title.
That was perfect. I fell in love with the concept of it and started just kind of throwing myself into how could I do this. So then by April 2008, a month before I graduated college, I went full time. I quit my waiter job and went all in on this. So 15 years I've been doing this. In 2011 was when I first started getting into finance copy. So then 2013 is when I met you, Sean. And I've had some good years and I've had some not so good years. And finally in 2018, things really bottomed out. I kind of went through and figured out what I was doing wrong and what always worked and what could I double down on.
Yeah.
And once I kind of figured that out, everything got really stable. Income just kept going up. So last year was when I launched Solo Copy Foundations, which is my copywriting program. We're 162 writers strong right now in the last year plus. And I'm helping writers, learn whether they are newcomers and need to learn the basics and get started from scratch, or they are looking to stabilize and grow.
Yeah.
And I teach them, the stuff that's worked for me. I'm ruthlessly focused on getting people clients, getting people work. I'm not that focused on like teaching you how to write copy, because I think those courses are a dime a dozen.
Sure.
Nobody's really teaching, the nuts and bolts of getting clients and making that a priority. So that's what I help them do.
Which is probably more important in the day of AI, to focus on the big picture, right?
I can't tell you how many arguments I have with people on AI, and like AI is not replacing copywriters. It never will.
Yeah.
There are still scientists, even though there are calculators,
Right. Exactly.
It's just a tool. It's just a tool.
That's right.
So that's the nutshell of my career for the last 15
So I'm curious, you said you kind of bottomed out in 2018, you figured some stuff out. Was it more about how you were working, what you were sending to clients? Like, what was the big aha kind of breakthrough for you?
For me, it was how I was getting clients and how I was kind of keeping that pipeline primed. I made the cardinal mistake in 2013 after I started working with Street Authority. About 6 months in, the money was good, and I was getting some other clients, and people were starting to get to know me in the industry. I was out with my wife, and I remember saying, because I'm an idiot, saying, "Oh, it's so great, like that we never have to go back to being broke again. Like, oh, I've arrived. People know me. I have a career now."
Yep.
It was the stupidest thing in the world because, just a few short years later, I had the worst possible year of my life financially, and I had a wife and 2 kids who were depending on me. Whatever I was doing wasn't working, and I just kept kind of doubling down on everything that wasn't working. And so I had, one main client always. And every time that client would fire me, because clients are always going to fire you at some point, yep. Then all of a sudden I would have to tell my wife, and she'd start crying, and then we'd have to panic and figure out what we're going to do next for money and how are we going to balance the bills and all that. And so it was just an understanding of like, go back to what worked in the beginning, make it just a system. Just anytime you need clients, this, I call it a ripcord. You can pull this ripcord, go out, get some clients, and figure out a way to juggle enough clients so that you're never so vulnerable on just one client's income.
Right.
That was kind of the big eureka moment for me, which took way too long to learn. But
it's all right.
Yeah.
So it was more about your pipeline process than your copy, which is obviously kind of why you ended up wanting to help people with that same pain.
Yeah, and I think too, the best way to learn copy is you could write copy that checks all the boxes and the client will still hate it. Like I try to tell people is I do teach you how to write copy, but I teach you how to write copy for the client. Because, and Sean, you'll attest to this because you're in finance too. The example I always use is every copywriting course, every copywriting book, program, whatever, will tell you fear sells more than greed. But then when you go to finance clients, they always say, well, fear doesn't work for us. You just need to write greed. And so now if I were just working off of courses, I wouldn't even know how to do that. Yeah. You have to learn how to tailor what you're doing to the people who are writing your checks.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like sometimes, and I know there's copywriters that argue this, but the client is your client. Like, and sometimes, you have to be careful because obviously your name's on the line with your copy. Yeah. So you got to push for certain things, but you also have to know when to kind of pick your battles and be like, okay, if you don't want this and you want this,
right?
Not my strongest recommendation, but at the end of the day, you got the editor's pen and the accountant's pen, So like, it's their money that they're paying for the copy.
And it really takes the pressure off your copy too when you do that, because I've found, and it's something I teach, is being likable is a much easier game to play than trying to be the top performing copywriter all the time. Because frankly, I know a lot of copywriters who are killers, but they spend all their time working and they're just completely immersed in copy. And for me, I would like to stop working and go hang out with my family and turn off that part of my brain. So that's where building the client experience comes in. And, I teach that a lot. You will get very, very far in this business just being likable and easy to work with. People will give you a much longer leash than if you're a jerk, but you made $1 million for them.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
that's true.
You know that. Jonathan, you probably know that from being in sales organizations. I know when I used to be in sales, that top sales guy was usually just an ass,
Yeah.
And they'd keep him around just because he had good numbers, but
that's right.
Made everybody else's life on the
team.
Those,
yep.
And they usually had the highest chargebacks because they were high pressure, hard closing.
Right. And they're the most demanding of everything within. Trust me, I'm that guy sometimes, but it reminds me of, what you're saying reminds me of the, I don't know if you've ever Sean and I've been talking about it recently, the show Mad Men, about the advertising guys back in the, I think it's the guy that supposed to be David Ogilvy, I guess, the show Don around Draper. I forgot the main character.
Don Draper.
Draper, Yep.
Yeah. He's an Ogilvy knockoff. I think it was the 60s through 60 through 70. Is that what we figured out last week?
But there's a scene in a recent episode I was watching. It reminds me of that, where the guy, it's a big, huge steel company, and they're doing a campaign for him, an ad campaign, and he's like, I don't know if I like this, So it's a great, they've done a great job. They put all this work into it, but they ultimately have to stroke the ego and caress the ego of the, you're trying to massage that ego of the person you're working with to make it more palatable for them or get them on board, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But so it's you've got the best copy in the world, but it's like trying to make that client or that person understand is a challenge in and of itself.
Right.
Yeah, I've told people before, like, I've had clients, not necessarily in like finance copy or some, high direct response, but when you get into B2B, B2C, some other stuff that's maybe not super hard direct response, it's more like there's sometimes the owners or the person writing the check, they just want to feel good about the ad.
Yeah.
It's not as much about having to convert. They would like that, but they also, and whether it's right or wrong doesn't matter because that's their feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to kind of step into that a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
So Tom, break down. You gave me the title, the 6-figure client experience, how to brew up the best client experience. Break down the title. And let's start diving into what is a 6-figure client experience.
Well, so first of all, I'm the first guy to say, as much as I am a copywriter, I'm really bad at naming things. So when you said, give me a title, I'm like, crap. All right. Because I just can't.
Well, now's your chance to fluff it up a little bit.
So, every client wants open communication, wants respect. I find a little bit of fun, not a lot. You can't overdo that, but they just want. I always remember, Sean, you used a line with me when we met in Texas. It was at the end of the trip. So it was the first time I'd ever been on a business trip. I'd ever met a client face to face. And I said it was really good to meet everybody and at least kind of, be a person. And you said it's always harder to fire a face. And I never forgot that. You need to have a life outside of work and bring tiny bits of it into the work, because it's
right.
I'm not suggesting that you ignore that it's business. Like, I think for the bad stuff, especially, you just remember it's business. Oh, you got rejected? Well, it's not personal. But if they keep you around, it might be personal.
Right.
Yeah.
It's such a hard line to explain and navigate sometimes, but I feel like I do it pretty well in my own work. I think the best, I hated the job, but I think the best job I ever had prior to being to this was being a waiter, because I had information that I had to communicate. Sometimes it was delicate. But you had to do it in a way that was positive, that was that connected with people at the table, and your pay depended on it. So you were forced to develop those soft skills. And I draw on that all the time. I mean, if you drop a tray of drinks into somebody's lap, which I have done, you better have a way to handle it that's going to diffuse, the situation, and make up for it. And I got a tip that night. And you have to bring that attitude into your work. There are so many writers that I work with, whether with a client or in my program, who clearly don't have personalities. They don't have. It doesn't appear like they have a life outside of work. They're just single guys who they don't do anything. They play video games or whatever. They live online, and it's very, very difficult to keep clients and connect with clients.
Oh, yeah,
because you don't know how to talk to people.
Right.
You need to be able to have conversations with people. And those few minutes before you start a Zoom call or whatever are really, really, really important to keeping rapport. And, my clients know I have a wife and kids and know that I'm the sole breadwinner. It's not I don't use that out of guilt, like, oh, they better not fire me, but just, they understand there's a human being on the other side of this.
Right.
They treat you a little differently.
I find it fascinating. I was telling Sean, I've got so I've owned some rental property, and I've got a tenant who is one of my tenants, is he has his own marketing agency. And he literally, like, I was having a conversation, like, I knew he owned his own marketing business, but I've never gotten into in-depth conversation of who he markets to. But he's like, yeah, I spend my time marketing to other marketing agencies because most of them don't know how to get clients. And I'm like, what? Sure. A marketing agency that doesn't know how to get clients. And he's like, yeah, you'd be surprised. So he does these mastermind groups with them, and he's just filling them up left and right because they are horrible when it comes to, like you've said, like with copywriters that you work with, they're horrible with going out there and just selling, face to face or, being the person, getting on a personal level with these clients. Yeah. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
So Tom,
go ahead.
I was just going to ask, do you like encourage people to get on Zoom calls and to go visit their clients, things like that? Because I know it's easy I've noticed with a lot of young copywriters, especially, or new copywriters, young in the business, they'd much rather hide behind an email proposal or anything but get on the phone or a Zoom call.
Yeah, in this day and age, I'm getting to that point because everybody's set up for it now, right? It's not a question anymore of if you can. It's just send a Zoom link. I do. I try to encourage them whenever I can. I always tell them that my wife, who is my biggest cheerleader, has always said for the last 15 years, all I need to do is get the client on the phone. If I get the client on the phone, I can charm them enough to get them to hire me. And that's almost 95% of the time true. I think it's important. What I do, a lot of them that I do work with, I talk with, they're not that worried about getting on a Zoom call. But what I try to explain to them is you need to set yourself apart on the Zoom call and show that you care, because every client that I have, every group Zoom call I'm on, there's at least one person who's staring down into their MacBook camera. They've got one hand up here. They're wearing a dirty t-shirt and the lighting is terrible. And it's like, if you take just a few steps to invest in your presence, you're going to look like $1 million. That happened. I bought this camera, I got this microphone, and suddenly, I had clients going, "Whoa, Tom, you're looking good over there." I'm like, okay, yeah, it was like $90 for equipment.
Yeah.
Just that little extra, put a shirt on with a collar. I know we don't want to have a dress code because we all work for ourselves, but if you just take little tiny steps to show that you care about your presentation,
absolutely,
really, really, really long way.
That's right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, we need to get Jonathan some lighting tips for his little studio there.
It's a little too dark.
Hiding in the shadows over there. I'd say this tool, I've told Jonathan about it before, but you might share this with some of your copywriters. It's called Eyeglasses. It's for your Mac. And it's a software for your computer, and it basically turns your camera so that you can pan in and out like this.
I noticed you do that. That's pretty cool.
So that if you don't have the perfect background, you can kind of create just this little section right here.
I don't want my door in the
right. Exactly. So you could crop that in using eyeglasses, and it also has other effects, but it'll actually do lighting and things like that as well. If you don't have the full lighting set up,
there you go.
Like you can go on here and I can adjust the brightness down and up. So now I look like Jonathan. And then, but it's pretty cool. It's it's just one of those little tools that just, like you said, it just makes everything a little bit more professional. And even if you wear a t-shirt, it's like, wear a clean one, maybe a V-neck, or something like that. And certainly not a white one. Like, go with black, at least, if you're going to do the t-shirt thing.
Yeah,
that's right. Very professional.
Who is it that talks? Somebody talks about if you're doing podcasts, you should always wear a black t-shirt or black shirt because the mic disappears more.
Yep.
So, that makes sense.
That's good. Good point.
I think it might have been John Lee Dumas or somebody like that talked about that. So I'm curious, Tom, what do you tell your brand new copywriters that come into your group and they're wanting to, create some stability, get some new clients, kind of where do you tell them to start? And then how would other people apply it? So we've got, salespeople that listen to this. We've got, freelancers, agency owners, all kinds of people. But tell us kind of where you start with people and then how that might apply to a couple different niches.
If I've got somebody who's an absolute beginner.
Yeah, whatever the most common. Tell us who your most common person coming in is, and then we can kind of extrapolate from there.
Most of them have little to no experience. I do have a few that are really good that have had clients who were just looking for stability. I'm trying to get a few more of those. Yeah. But if I've got an absolute beginner who doesn't know where to start, the first thing I say is, who do you want to write for? And because the whole niching down thing is such a debate, and everybody puts so much pressure on it. I keep trying to tell everybody, like, pick a niche, take 5 minutes and do it. Because there's 30 million small businesses in the United States. Copy is words that businesses need. So do they need copy? Yeah, they probably do. And the other part is, for me, niching is always just about getting out of your own way and picking something so that you're going. I would rather you be out, making some mistakes and learning instead of sitting around planning and writing down, because how many copywriters do you know that go, I've been sitting on a niche for a month and I don't know if it's the right one, or what's the best one? It's like, the best one is whatever one you start going with.
Well, I think the problem too with people think that, people think the niche is not big enough, which thanks to online is no longer true.
Yeah.
Two, they think they're going to be, a lot of copy people are creative. So there's this fear of getting stuck there forever for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But what I've found, and you can tell me if this is true for you too, Tom, it doesn't matter what kind of copy you write, you're going to get some overflow out of whatever niche you pick. Like, it's just going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. And if they say, well, I don't know if I want to write emails or blog posts for the rest of my life. And I'm like, once you start showing that you can write, they're going to come back with, hey, I'm working on this other promotion over here. You think you could take a look at it? Like, that happens constantly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's like when I used to be in the construction business, my dad and I had a construction business. We built sunrooms on the back of houses, right? So
awesome.
We turned porches, decks, whatever, into full-blown 4-season sunrooms. And it, without fail, every time we're there, they're like, while you're here,
could you do this?
Do you do this? Because it's so hard to find people and to go through the process of finding someone. And I think that's what that's what people forget with their customers all the time. Like, once somebody's decided on you, it's a lot of work to find someone else to decide on.
Right.
And so they'd rather deal with you.
Mm-hmm. They trust you.
And you can just drop, if you, let's say you're doing their email, next Zoom call, just kind of drop in. Hey, I was doing this blog post for a client last week. Got great results. Oh, you do blog posts? No, not all the time, but I guess.
Well, that construction example is great too, because in that 2018, for about 6 months, I quit copy just because everything had gone so sideways. And I started running a wood shop out of my basement full time. Cool. And all I did was build floating shelves. But you deliver floating shelves. They go, hey, do you do dining room tables? I'm like, well, I could.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. Do you do, kitchen cabinets, hutches and stuff? Yeah, I can do that. It's just another box, right?
Yeah.
You're right. Because they trust you and they like you, which is the whole point. If they didn't like you, they wouldn't ask you.
And in some cases, just because you showed up twice or once,
right?
It's like sometimes it's just hard to get people to show up, right? So you'll go back to that person just because they're there. Mm-hmm. You don't want to count on that as a a way to build your clients, because they will eventually find somebody else, like you said earlier. I think that since you've been doing this, though, and I'm curious, since you've kind of taken this different approach, have you seen the lifespan of your client change for better or for worse? Like,
yeah, definitely. I have a client right now that we're 2.5 years strong, and it's going amazingly well. I think I'm their only copywriter at this point. They actually just split. It was a partnership that broke up a couple of weeks ago, and they both individually reached out to me and said, we don't need you to be exclusively come write for us. So, I got a little bit of a raise out of this situation, but they both said, they like me, they trust me, they like my work. So why not keep, you've been doing great work for us. Why don't we just keep doing great work together? And so, yeah, now I'm going on. That was January of 21 when I first started with that group.
Right.
And it's just continued since then. Actually, my favorite example of this, and I won't name the client. Sean, you'll know who it is. If I told you, they hired me in 2020, I think 2021. It was 2021. They hired me at the beginning of 2021, put me on retainer immediately, and a nice retainer. And we worked together for 10 months. I made them nothing in that 10 months. And it wasn't anybody's fault. It was just a bad fit. We didn't work well together. It wasn't personal, just their way of approaching copy was different from the way I approach copy.
Right.
So they took a bath hiring me, but they kept me on. I mean, I have journal entries from summer of that year going, I really kind of hope they fire me soon because I'm getting tired of this. But it was October when they fired me. And they reached out to me and said, hey, can you jump on a call tomorrow? I knew what that meant. And so we jumped on the call the next day, and the two of them were there, and they told me they wanted to end the relationship. I said, it was fine. And, we were friendly about it. And I said, guys, when you messaged me and said, can we jump on a call? It felt kind of like when your high school girlfriend says we need to talk. And they laughed just like that. Right.
Yeah.
It was great. It was a very friendly end to a relationship.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, after that phone call, I got an email from some company I'd never heard of saying that those guys had referred them to me. Now, those guys lost $50,000 hiring me. They made none of that back.
Right.
And yet they still referred me to somebody else because they liked me and they liked working with me.
Sure.
That's like the perfect illustration of building the right client experience.
Yeah, and I think if you're working with the right clients, even if it doesn't work out, if you're working with someone who understands copy, specifically talking about copywriters, but whatever your niche is, if they really understand the game, they know that, especially in direct response, like despite what the marketers say, a good copywriter does not win 10 out of 10 times.
No.
Much closer to baseball and 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
That's Hall of Fame.
300 is great.
Yeah. I mean, my first copy chief said, look, if you can get us 300 average, that's Hall of Fame stuff. Like we're good with that. We'll make plenty of money to pay you and keep you around, all that. And if you're working with a client that doesn't understand that, then it's going to be tough. But if you work with somebody that understands it, they understand that, it's worth trying for 10 months or a year because one promotion makes up for it.
Yep.
If you can hit it. So yeah, I think a lot of writers have to be reminded that it doesn't have to be a home run every time. It's like Jonathan's favorite movie, Moneyball. Like,
I love that.
Just get on base.
I love that analogy. Yeah. And that's why I have such a long relationship with this one client, because we're putting out copy like every day.
Yeah.
It's a lot of emails. And it's like, if I can just get a few base hits a week, they love me and I'm happy with the work and they're happy with the output, and everybody wins.
So how do we apply this kind of 6-figure client experience to, say, Jonathan's in industrial sales? So put on your kind of thinking hat, Tom, and like, how would you apply that to outside sales?
Well, I mean, I'm in sales technically with, selling my copywriting program, and I'll tell you all day, I get people who say they just enjoy talking with me, or they'll say, I had one that said maybe a week or two ago that they wound up buying because they knew the sales process that I was walking them through, but I made it entertaining and natural, and I did it differently than most people do.
Right.
If you view your relationship with a client or a prospect or whatever as like, you got to check these boxes, it's going to feel like it, and it's going to feel very impersonal. If you can do it in a way where you're still checking the boxes, but it's a lot more natural, it's a lot more personable, and you come across as likable. When I'm negotiating, my negotiation style with clients is similar in that I don't try to get the most amount of money out of them, because I think I'm stepping over dollars to get a few extra pennies. Because if I have a long-term relationship with them, I'm going to make a lot more money in the long run. And so I will say something like, all right, look, we're a little far apart on numbers here. What's a number, or you don't want to pay my rate. What's a number that you're happy with? And let's see if I'm happy with it, because I would rather go into this relationship, with positive vibes, instead of you resenting how much you're paying me out of the gate, because that's going to make a much better working relationship. And I'm really upfront about that.
Sure.
I'll give up, $1,000 a month, but I'm going to keep that client for, 10 more months than if I had squeezed out a few extra dollars out of them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Really important.
That's a really good point, because if they're uncomfortable, then they expect more sooner.
Yes.
If you can fall into their budget, they'll give you more leadway.
Yeah.
And it's a bet on yourself, right?
Yeah.
I know. I know I can keep them happy.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, sometimes I'm wrong. I've had a few over the years, and they blow up. But
no, that's really good. To follow up on that, I had a client this week where, so in addition to industrial sales, I do a podcast where I do a lot of sponsor advertising, and sometimes I have sponsorship agreements, 6 months, 12 months on the podcast. And I had one company that I've been trying to get on my show for, probably the last 8 months, actually. But, and they've been toying with it, but they sent me a proposal to come in, and it was under what I typically charge for a podcast customer for a 6 month or a 12 month. I said, listen, man, I'm going to do this because I know you guys are going to be happy, so let's just pull the trigger on this and work together. Cause I know I'm going to re-up them, at the end of 6 months, and they're just going to, just keep pulling the trigger, so I was like, sure, I'm confident you guys will re-up, at the end of the year. Yep. So I'm happy to do that.
This also goes along with, not having one main client, not being solely reliant, because you're free to do stuff like this.
Oh yeah.
I had a guy I used to work with before I was in finance, who always said, you do your best work when you know your bills are paid. Yep. And I'm free to take on a few smaller clients and stay loyal to them and keep them for years, because I don't need need them all to be that much money. Yeah.
Right.
And then when you put them all together, then when one of them drops,
that's right.
I'm okay. I'll just go out and get another one.
Yeah.
So how do you balance things like, I think this is a big thing for freelancers, especially. How do you balance things like the amount that you're getting paid with scope, and leave room? So let's say you have I see on your website about, $2,000 to $5,000 a month, right? Is what you're kind of promising your copy.
We're up to 5 to 10 now.
Nice. You need to update your copy.
Apparently, I don't know which one you're looking at. But.
It was on your link tree. Just clicked through to your link.
Oh, okay.
Might need to update your link tree.
I'll fix that. Should go to a different page.
Who knows? Maybe 2 to 5. Have you split tested that? 2 to 5 may be more believable.
It had nothing to do with that. It was when I was starting out, I'm very careful about being able to back up what I say. And so 2 to 5, I felt like I promised. Now we're at that point where I've got writers saying, hey, I have one writer saying, well, I make $9,500 a month now, thanks to you. I'm like, okay, well, now I can update the copy, So,
right.
So how do you balance, let's say you got a 5K, as kind of your main retainer, then you've got maybe 2 others at one at 2,000, another 1,500, something like that.
Sure.
How do you balance scope and those kind of things?
I don't have an exact science to it. it's a lot of gut and it's a lot of communication with the client. Because there are times when everybody gets bogged down with deadlines and something has to give and suddenly something is late.
Yeah.
If they complain, and they're one of my lower clients, I'll be straight with them and say, look, here's the deal. I'm running into a bottleneck here and you're my lowest paying client. So actually that strategy worked. I got some, that client turned into my best paying client after a while.
Cool.
Sometimes I have to be honest with them. Sometimes you just have to take it all on and gut it out and put in a few extra hours, which I hate doing, but it's
So how do you figure out what to charge people? I'm curious, like, I mean, you don't have to give away all your secrets, but just kind of like, how do you decide what to charge someone and then kind of go in knowing, okay, I'm going to be writing this amount of copy per month on average for this person, as opposed to not really knowing, setting proper expectations, all that stuff.
I view it more in terms of what I'm doing per day with them rather than per month. Like if I know, all right, if I'm spending like an hour a day with them, that's pretty good, and then I know that I'm aiming for 4,000 to 6,000 a month, is typically where I try to land with a retainer. Sometimes how
many hours a day typically? I don't want to get you into like an hourly. I know what we do is not really hourly work,
right? And if any of my clients are watching,
but just ballpark, like what do you try to say for 5,000? I'm willing to work, X amount of hours per week on that client or per day.
At 5,000 a month, I'm hoping to be 1 to 2 hours. 2 hours would be the maximum
per day
that I'd want to spend per day. And typically, I try to keep it around an hour. I work really fast, so that helps.
Yeah. That's the part of the conversation that nobody can see. When you talk hourly and rates and all that stuff is, the better you get, the faster you get. The templates you develop, like all that stuff, that's all worth money. It's the old analogy of knowing where to hit the hammer and as opposed to just hitting the hammer.
It is. It's funny. Because I do try to teach. This is how I write emails in a few minutes, in 10, 15 minutes. People go, you can't do that. I'm like, okay, well, so I go live and I all right, you're going to watch me write 4 emails and I wrote them in 20 minutes. Like and I'm talking the whole time. Like, okay, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
It's just about having the beauty with emails is it's just, one, you got to hit one idea. So the most of the work is just coming up with that one angle.
Is that what most of your work is? Emails? Is that your niche?
Yeah, it is. And I love it. I would much rather do emails than 20-page promos. I still get a few of them. I just got one. But I mostly just I would rather bang out some emails every day for somebody.
Yeah. There's something about the satisfaction. I think there's some momentum that's created in short projects.
Yeah.
Like I love writing space ads. I love writing Facebook ads. I mean, my Facebook ads are 500 to 800 words. So they're not tiny ads. Yep. They're not Don Lapre tiny ads. For our really savvy old school direct response, tiny ads can get you newspapers. We won't talk about what happened to Don Lapre though. But yeah, I like that idea of like the short stuff, because those 20-page promos are no joke. Like they eat up your life for a good however long, right? Yeah. Even if you're fast, like they're going to take everything you've got for a week if you're fast. I know there's some people that say they can do them in like half a day or a day. I just don't believe that. But I'm sure there's some gurus out there and they've got enough templates and, stuff. But so that makes a lot of sense then, that you're doing emails and, shorter, knock it out, clients getting a steady stream of new emails every month. Which is, I tell you, I think that's one of my favorite niches for sure, is because it never stops. Like it just never stops. You've always got to have new emails. And it's fun to always just kind of come up with new ideas. Those have been my best clients too, is the email clients.
Yeah.
Yep.
And nobody's going to take down email.
Right.
You know, like Twitter makes changes all the time. I do have a Twitter client, and it's sucks sometimes because Twitter kind of changes the rules of how these things work, and then growth stalls or whatever. But it's like email. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got email. Everybody's using email. Everybody's going to use email.
Yeah.
Right.
It's nice and easy.
Yeah. And there's we've had on here. Do you know Bill Mueller by chance?
Mm-mm.
He has a program called Story Sales Machine. He's an email copywriter, and he does all stories. And he's been on the show
like that
3 times, I think.
Yeah, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, 2 solo, and then I think he was on our 300th episode or whatever, something like that. But so yeah, what are some other cool niches that some of your students are having success with?
I have one writer, Alan, who's done really well. And I honestly don't know. I keep meaning to ask him. We got to do an interview sometime. I keep meaning to ask him how he's targeting his clients, because he's got senior living, which is a great niche because that's always growing. I mean, my best friend is a real estate developer. He just does senior living. But then all of a sudden he'll drop in the Facebook group and be like, hey, I'm writing this press release for this porta potty company. And I'm like, well, how did you get into that? Which
that's that's kind of the like the overflow stuff. That I was talking about. You know, just
hey. So that's a good pun too. Yeah. For a porta potty. That's great. I love watching guys just kind of stumble into work like that. That's the biggest example I can think of off the top of my head.
So are you finding more people are niching by industry or by output? Like you're doing email. So are you doing email and an industry, or just email?
Typically I'm doing emails in finance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of a double niche, which I think that's pretty common, right? You pick both. I write this type of copy for this type of person, and you put those two together, because really email copywriting is its own niche. Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the getting started, just to get them to build a list of companies to reach out to, they're usually picking some kind of industry. So, you know, I've had some did fashion, and some did, you know, the one that did fashion was fun because she didn't have a portfolio, and she got a phone interview with Bloomingdale's, which was wild to me. Like, and she was, cool. I forget where she's located, but not in the States. She's in their file now, at least. But I thought that was pretty crazy. I guess this stuff works. But, you know, there are some that I just don't even, I don't hear too much about the niche as much as I hear about what they're writing. A lot of blog posts, blog posts and emails for sure. Press releases seem to be coming back too.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of PR. I've seen a lot of PR lately that have done well as campaigns and other things. So I think, PR in general is making a little bit of a comeback.
Do you know Ed Lattimore? We've had him on the show before. He's like big.
I don't know him, but I'm a fan.
Okay. Yeah, he's come on the show in the past for his stuff on Twitter. He does some pretty provocative.
Yeah, he and Joshua have done some stuff together.
Ed Lattimore's coffee bit is fantastic. Really good. I can't say any of it, but it's really funny.
Now you said, Tom, that you're not very good at naming things. There's a guy who's really good at naming things.
Yes. Like, I get jealous of that. I hate how good some people can be at naming stuff, because I just can't. Yeah. Like even my program, I don't like the name of it, but it's just it's how I just backed into it, and now it's here, so I got to keep it. But.
Well, I mean, but you just move forward, and that's worth more than finding the perfect title or, you know, whatever. Yeah. Right. That's kind of mistakes I make. Like, it's not the perfect title. Spend 6 weeks of my 8-week project, you know, financial, coming up with a headline.
Well, that's that's where pre-selling comes in. That's what happened with this program, because I needed to test it, to see if it would sell. I had a very small Twitter audience last year, and the original plan, it was actually called Solo Copy Empire, and it was gonna be higher ticket, and it was gonna be for experienced copywriters, and my DM inbox was loaded with beginners. It wasn't the experienced copywriters didn't want me, but the beginners did. So I changed Empire to Foundations and tweaked it a little bit and threw it out there to see if anybody would buy it. I thought maybe if I get 1 or 2 sales, it'd be pretty good. And I sold 9. And like by 7, my wife was coming to my office going, does any of this exist yet? Because you're taking in a lot of money for something that doesn't exist. And I'm like, no, trust me, this is part of the process, honey. It's okay. And yeah, then it was like, all right, well, this is the name because I need to start building, so I built it over the course of a month.
That's pretty cool. 9 sales, like to jumpstart everything. That's cool.
It was amazing. Yeah. I'm very grateful for it. Grateful for everybody in the program.
What are you hearing is the biggest struggle right now in the industry?
It's all between your ears. Everybody is worried about AI, which just drives me crazy. The other thing is that there are a lot of lower priced programs. This was one of the reasons I built this program, but there are a lot of lower priced programs that teach you how to be a master of copywriting, and then don't really teach you how to get clients. And the problem is they've convinced all of these writers that they need to be masters of copywriting before they can go out and get clients, which is, the game. But I've talked to so many people who are like, I would love to. I think what you're doing is great, but I just bought this course over here a couple months ago, and I'm like, so do you have any clients? And they go, well, no, we're still learning this thing or whatever. Go, okay, so it's not working then.
Yeah.
You can go day one and start going out and getting clients.
Yeah, the fastest way to learn copy is to have paying clients.
It's how I learned. It's how I fell into finance completely by accident. It was a job listing for a company called Casey Research. And
I remember that.
Roy Furr was running things at the time. And I convinced him to let me.
Too.
Yeah, I do too. But he gave me my first big break. I convinced him to let me write something on spec. And I wrote like a lead, a couple of pages. And then he hired me for a $2,500 project. And then he said, don't work for free ever again. And, but when the Casey guys first jumped on the phone with me, they're like, so what's your, what experience do you have in investing? And I went, I don't have any money. And, that honesty really worked. But
what do they say to that? I'm just curious. That's funny.
I thought they would laugh. They didn't laugh, but they said, well, then how do you expect to write to, the audience? Mm-hmm. And I don't remember what I said. Some kind of it was 2011. So I was like, well, there are forums and stuff, and I'll really do research basically. Like there's plenty of people online who are talking about it. Research is my thing. Whatever I said was enough, I guess. Yeah. But I mean, I didn't trade my first stock until a couple of years ago, and I don't even really trade stocks. But I just figured out how to do it in 2020, I think. Yeah. So you don't have to be a master of everything. You don't have to know everything. You'll figure it out as you go.
And you can't, right? I mean, some of the products I've sold, written copy for that I've sold. I mean, financial client that I wrote a sales letter for them about 2 years ago. Like I still don't understand half the stuff he says. Like, or probably 3/4 or 90%. I don't know.
Yes.
And it's like, because he's at such a higher, different level, like macro, geopolitical type newsletter. And man, it's just like, it's dense stuff. But the people that love it, everybody else, they subscribe, they try it out, and they refund in 30 days. But they know that. They know there's only there's a very specific type of person, like an engineer, very in-depth, trader type person that wants that newsletter. Big themes and things like that. So he doesn't even pick stocks. It's just all, commentary. And they're just killing it, doing great. So yeah, you don't have to know. I mean, you're going to learn as you write.
Yeah.
And if you can sell yourself, by the time the letters or the email or whatever's done, that's how you got a decent piece of copy.
Yep. If they like you, they'll work with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find the more transparent you can be about who you are and where you are in life or in business, I think the better off you are.
Totally agree. I use this example all the time too, and I don't think it was another one of those, like, I panicked and just blurted it out, but it was with I was on the phone with Jack Lismy, Tree Authority, and in January 2013, and we were negotiating, and he said, how many promotions could you do a month? And I'm like, 2. And he goes, okay, but realistically you could do maybe 1 a month. And I was, yeah, okay. And he said, well, how much would you charge for monthly retainer? And I blurted out, I don't know. Nobody's ever asked me that before. And somehow I got out of that conversation with a $5,000 a month plus royalties contract. Like,
right.
There's something endearing about just being willing to.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
To admit your shortcomings.
And I haven't talked to Jack in forever. I need to look him up.
You should. Good man. I think he's at Eagle Publishing now.
Is that where he's at?
I just talked to him a few months ago. He reaches out to me every year.
It's funny. So the reason I ended up moving to Austin was somebody that Jack had referred to me a while back, who he met here in Austin, Ryan, my buddy who runs capitalism.com. Jack introduced us. So I ended up coming work for Ryan. It was funny. Ryan and I were hanging out about 2 months ago. We were hanging out at his place, and we had a group of people, but Jack Lismy called, and Ryan held up the phone. He's like, look, it's Jack. We were in the middle of something, so we couldn't answer, but it was kind of funny that he had not heard from him forever. And then when the two of us are together, Jack calls. It's like weird synchronicities and stuff.
He pops up in the most random times. Like, oh yeah, Jack Lismy. I forgot about him.
Yeah. I need to touch base. Writing that down so I don't forget. Cool. So what's one piece of wisdom? Well, actually, first I want to talk for just a little bit about AI because it's on everybody's mind. So we keep.
All right, let me take another swig.
Hey, real quick, Sean, I got to mention before we step into the depths of AI, this whole credibility. I was reminded just in this conversation, because I mentioned that I referenced this on another podcast this week, but the transparency is actually very refreshing to people. People sometimes don't want to show the vulnerabilities, but I think it's attractive to a lot of people out there. And I was reading this excerpt from a book this week that talked about it. This was in the London Times back in 1913. So some people may not be familiar with Ernest Shackleton, right? He, big explorer. Are you guys familiar with him?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're pen pals, man. Used to be.
So he ran an ad. This was like a help wanted ad back in 1913. And I actually pulled this up when we were talking. Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. So it attracted 5,000 applicants out of a crew that they could only hold for 27 people. Yeah. So, I mean, they had people lined up for.
That's a lot like the Admiral Byrd expedition letter.
Yeah.
That's another famous letter. It kind of starts the same way.
Yep.
Yeah. And that was those were serious high ticket offers back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And especially that day. All right. So Tom, you said you heard a lot of people talking about or scared of AI. Is that most of your copywriters, or what are you hearing from clients and things like that around AI?
Clients
I know the kind of the copywriting story, but I'm curious what you're hearing on your side from from actual clients.
I think the clients that I work for, I held my breath I bet it was about maybe 6 months ago, when one of my clients said, "Hey, have you heard of ChatGPT?" And I went, "Crap."
No.
But so right.
I've not heard of
Chat,
it.
What? And they actually said, play around. They were telling me to play around with it. It might help make my job a little easier. I was like, okay, you have the right idea. I've heard bits, and some of my writers have done some outreach and I've heard from companies saying, well, we're using ChatGPT now. You shouldn't even bother trying to be a copywriter. And they say, what do I say to that? I say, you don't say anything. You say good luck, and then you put them on the follow-up for 3 months from now because they're going to need a copywriter in 3 months.
Right.
That's the thing is, and I did this for a webinar that I ran for my program. I went into Slack for one of my clients, and I just searched for the phrase "I don't have time," and I got just a giant block of comments from my main client about talking about how they don't have time. I don't have time to look this over. I don't have time to review this, so just send it out. I don't have time. Just illustrating, like, we're all scared of ChatGPT because we play around with it and go, oh, if you do this and you type in this prompt, it gets pretty close, and you only have to edit it a little bit, like, because we have the time to do that. Like, clients are busy with the copy. They're also busy with cash flow and finances and banking and customer fulfillment, inventory in some cases. Like, they've got so many other things to worry about. They don't want to sit and fiddle around with ChatGPT.
Right.
And that I'm seeing, more and more of. It's like people are realizing, oh, this is great if you know how to use it and also know how to edit what comes out of it. Because right now it's still just hype. I'm not seeing a lot of I'm not seeing a lot of clients using it successfully. No, just out of the box. Nobody's doing that.
And over time, it's actually getting, in terms of ChatGPT, it's getting, it's actually denigrating. It's the quality is going down.
Yeah, from March to June, it went down quite a bit. I think it's ticked back up a little bit in my experience from using it. I found that you can use it very effectively if you understand how to kind of program it a little bit.
Yeah.
In each thread and really keep it. I figured out how to do some pretty cool stuff with it. The thing and it's great for short stuff. It's nowhere near ready for a 20-page, financial newsletter.
No.
Like,
right.
Not even remotely close.
Right.
There's some courses. John Benson's got some cool courses about writing VSLs with it. But I mean, there's so much what he calls pre-prompting that goes into it, and formulas and everything else.
Yep.
Nobody can figure that out or very few people are going to figure that out without, buying a course from somebody like him or putting in a ton of hours to figure it out.
Yeah.
So you're not just going to get it out of the box, for sure, to do those kind of things. But I do think it can I now use it to write some Facebook ads, and instead of it taking me 30 minutes to write an ad, I can do it in 10, 15.
Sure.
So
I've done it with emails once in a while, and it is usually like I'm just staring at the blank page. I just need something to get me moving a little bit. But even then, like, I'll have it spit out and go, God, this is terrible. I'm gonna have to sit.
But it almost, when that happens, though, it almost frees you up to like, oh, okay, I guess nobody else is going to do this for me.
Right.
Like, it almost triggers a part of you to be like, oh, okay, I guess I do have to write this.
Yeah.
This is the best you've got. Okay, good. I feel comfortable. I'm good. Yeah. My job is safe.
Security. Yep.
Or you ask it for like, give me 20 ideas to write an email in this niche, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then
those are good.
Now you've got something to work with and things like that. So I agree with you. It's a tool. I do think it will replace the majority of copywriters in 2 to 5 years. That's just my opinion.
Meaning what Sean means is the 70% that really are just kind of
the Fiverr and Upwork crowd, basically.
Exactly.
That absolutely.
Not the top 30%. Yeah, exactly.
That crowd's already using it. It's funny because you can tell on Twitter too. Like, there are certain Twitter responses where I'm like, did you really just punch into ChatGPT just to type a Twitter response? Like, you couldn't do that on your own?
Yeah.
It's really obvious.
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. So that wasn't too bad talking about AI. Any last bit of wisdom you have for freelancers, whether it's copywriters, graphic designers, whatever, in as far as working with clients and?
Yeah, I've said it, but soft skills, man, that's the key. That is absolutely the key. If you can go out and bartend for a while and really develop it, everything you do in your communications with clients, whether it's outreach or it's, you're talking about a project or whatever, if it's not something you would say, don't put it in there. Like, don't talk like a human being. If you're a human being, you come across as sincere. You're going to make a much better connection with your client, and it's just going to be good for business.
Do you use any hard direct mail for, some of your clients or prospecting?
Hard direct mail, like snail mail direct mail?
Yeah. Like FedEx packages.
I haven't done that in a long time. Well, if you mean like client relationships, I've sent gift baskets. I've done that.
Right. For like as a follow-up, but it sounds like most of your clients or new clients come on board from referrals, email. Right? Or email.
Yeah. For me at this point in my career, most of it's referrals.
Okay.
For a lot of the writers, the stuff I teach, I got started with cold email.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, how can people find out more about your program, Tom? Where do they go?
Well, I've got, I talk about it ad nauseum on Twitter. So you could go to twitter.com/MeitnerTom, which I have right here. I don't have a dedicated, webpage for it yet, but if you go to like the pinned tweet, I'm going to fix the link tree apparently. And, I'm talking about it all the time. You can sign up for the link tree does have my email sign up. I send out emails almost every day telling stories. You can hear about the bats in my basement, or I just wrote one about an ex-girlfriend that dumped me. I got some good ones.
Not recently though, right?
Not recently.
Apparently
my
your
current girl is
toast.
We just we took my wife's car in and we just junked it for $350 because the mechanic wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, that's never a good sign.
We're a one-car family at the moment, which is fine.
Yeah.
When you work from home, it's not that nearly as big of a deal, is it?
That's right.
It isn't. We didn't panic. We just kind of laughed about it. It was a 2007. It lived a full life.
That's a full life right there. I mean, you got these people driving Teslas that are starting to find out that, oh wait, the whole thing revolves around a giant battery.
I've gotten great feedback from people who love that I talk about my 2014 Dodge Caravan instead of like some kind of hot car that I'm leasing or anything. Yeah, no, it's just the Dodge Caravan. It's got Cheerios ground up into the carpet, and that's my ride.
How old are your kids now?
Jack is going to be 9 next month. Harrison just turned 6, and Anna is 2.
Wow.
Awesome.
It's a miracle you haven't heard them.
Yeah, it's like you are deep in the thick of it. Jonathan's on the tail end. I am next month and officially an empty nester. So
get out of town, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm over here texting my wife going, "Hey, I'm starting the podcast. Make sure you keep everybody off of the side of the house because
That's right.
I can hear my daughter screaming, and I'm hitting the mute button trying to."
I remember those days.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's right. I think every podcast worth its salt has a screaming kid somewhere in the background in some episode, right?
Yeah.
Or dog barking,
sure,
or something. Like, you're not human if you don't have something like that going on.
Yeah,
I haven't. Every client I've had at some point, I've been on a Zoom call where like, my 6-year-old will come in and start waving at the camera.
But if we got anything out of the pandemic, I think that's one of the good things that happened is like people just got to realize, to remember, like, oh, these are humans living real lives.
Sure. Yeah.
Working from home. And everybody gets it now. Like I think pretty much everybody, even if they were, super corporate because they had to work from home for a while.
Yeah.
Now they're more, I think, understanding of freelancers. So I think it's really helped the freelancer market.
I agree.
Because people got a taste of it. They're like, oh, okay, yeah. Sometimes the kid is screaming in the background. You just have to deal with it.
Just roll with it.
I was on one today, call, and he was set up in his living room, got his mic and everything. And there's this little 3-year-old or 4-year-old, I don't know, crawling, like ninja crawling, trying not to be in the camera, like across the floor, but you can still see him.
That's right.
So, and everybody laughed because they're like, "Oh, that's so cute."
That's right.
So yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, Tom, this has been good. So yeah, look up, go to Twitter or x.com, Meitner Tom, / Meitner Tom. It's MEITNERTOM. You're also on LinkedIn. I know Tom Meitner on LinkedIn. You tell some of the same stories there, I think, but Twitter's your jam, huh?
Yeah. Twitter's been for a while. I'm just starting to get into LinkedIn a little more.
Do you follow Joshua Lysick on Twitter? Do you know him?
I have. Yeah, I believe I still do. Yeah.
Okay.
I work off of a lot of lists. Some of these guys talk about the same stuff a lot. So
yeah.
But I like Josh. I'm subscribed to a lot of his stuff.
Yeah.
He and Ed have done some stuff together too. I noticed in their Gumroad store that they've done some stuff together.
Yes,
I didn't realize that before. So, well, Tom, it's been good. We're going to wrap up. We're going to put you in the green room for just a minute. If you can, to stick around, we'll do a little debrief while Jonathan takes us out. So, hey, let's do an applause on the way out, Jonathan. Gosh. We'll be right back with you.
Thank you, guys.
That's like the George Costanza, the Seinfeld episode where he's like trying to go out on a high note.
Yeah. George is never going out on a high note.
Oh man, I love that. I've been going through some of the old Seinfeld episodes lately. They're so good.
I'd say that is one of my favorite things to do with ChatGPT is to write Seinfeld episodes.
They're fantastic.
It nails it every single time. Like, it's so good. You just say, I want to write a Seinfeld episode about this some strange little thing, and it nails it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So check that out.
Like I say, I mean, treat it like a toy, not a tool, and it's way more fun.
But you've been playing around with Claude though, right?
Yeah, Claude's really good. I think it's more
similar results with Claude as
it's more nuanced though. Claude seems to read between the lines of your prompts better than Chat does. So it's like a full-time employee who made it past the intern phase, where Chat feels more like an intern. Like, you got to be very specific with Chat. Like, this is what I need.
Right.
Here's the big details. Here's a little background info. Here's an example. Yeah. Then Chat does pretty well. Chat's like an A student that can take the information you give it and do something cool. Claude is a little bit more sophisticated to me. Is a little bit more entrepreneurial, or C student, a little more creative.
Okay.
Is the way I think of it. So
cool.
That's my 2 cents.
I have to check that out.
Yeah. And Claude's free. So
yeah. Cool, man. Well, good stuff. It was fun having Tom on. We'll be posting a link to his Twitter, his contact information to all of our listeners. You can find us at persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your podcast platforms, Stitcher Radio, iHeart, Spotify, you name it. Sean, you got anything else, man, before we close out?
That's it.
All right. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the show, and we'll see you. This is episode 321. We'll see you next week on 322.
See ya.
All right. Stop the broadcast.